friends, and welcome to That Outdoorsy Podcast. I'm your host, Cassie, aka That Outdoorsy Gal, and today I'm joined by two incredibly talented wildlife photographer brothers, Hayden and Harrison, whose work has completely stopped me in my tracks more than once. From bears to wolves, these two have a way of capturing nature that feels so wild. And I mentioned in a previous episode that I'm a total wannabe photographer, especially when it comes to wildlife photography. I love taking photos on my hikes, but wildlife photography feels like a whole other level. So I'm super excited to learn more about how these two do what they do. Today, we're talking about everything from what first pulled them into wildlife photography, to their most unforgettable encounters, to the stories behind some of their most iconic shots, and maybe even some advice for anyone who wants to dip their toes or camera into this world. Gentlemen, welcome to That Outdoorsy Podcast. I can't wait to hear your stories, your process, and all the behind the lens magic.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited you guys came on, and I'm so excited to learn more about your journey into wildlife photography. And I'm excited to learn more about how I can become a wildlife photographer. So I guess let's just get into it. I've followed you guys on Instagram for a little while, so that's kind of how I found you. And I did not realize you were brothers at first. So that worked out great. So I guess where are you guys from? Who's older? How did you guys get into the outdoors? Let's just start there.
Sounds good. I'll start, Bups, and then you can finish
go
off
for it.
some of it. I'm older. I'm 3 years older. And we are both, we grew up in Maryland, just outside Washington, D.C. And then, as far as the outdoors go, we always grew up, folks took us out hiking and stuff like that. So always like the outdoor. I don't know, Bups, do you have something else to throw in there?
Yes. I mean, like Hayden said, we grew up camping, hiking, rafting, kind of all around the mid-Atlantic. Spent a lot of time on the Potomac River, camping in West Virginia, things like that. It's been a part of our lives since we were little kids.
I camped a lot when I was little. My parents, instead of going to Disneyland, we go camping. But I didn't really get into hiking until I moved to Utah 12 years ago, I guess. But now I'm obsessed.
That makes sense.
So, yeah.
I mean, Utah has some of the best hiking in the country.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I will never leave. Unless it's to Montana. I'm on a Montana kick right now. So I just have to stay away or I will end up moving out there one day. But
it's pretty funny because when we really started like hiking hard and really getting into the hiking stuff when we were older, it was Utah. It was Zion, Bryce, all those Canyonlands, that got us hooked. But then we found wildlife, and then we ended up going to Wyoming and Montana a lot more.
And I think that's kind of where I'm at too. I've hiked most of Utah at this point, and now I'm just kind of I don't know. There's just something about animals, and I am more of a solo hiker. So for a long time, I've always kind of been nervous around animals, which valid, but I've kind of come to appreciate them and not be as scared of them. I still keep my distance, of course, but they're just so fascinating. So I guess on that note, let's just get into how did you guys even get into wildlife photography?
Yeah, sure. So basically when the pandemic hit in 2020, like I said, we'd done a bunch of hiking and stuff, but previously. But when the pandemic hit, neither of us were working, and we're like, well, why not? Let's just go to all these national parks that we've never gone to that we wanted to. And so we just started going and hiking a ton. And then that all led up to in 2022, we were on a trip with our buddies. We did a 10-day trip through Yellowstone and the Tetons and then to Glacier. And we were out hiking in this backcountry kind of trail in Glacier. And we came around a corner and there was a grizzly bear right there. And it was a wild experience, but that's what personally hooked me. And then we came back from that trip, and up until then, it was just kind of we were hooked on the hiking. We did Grand Canyon rim to rim. We're doing Mount Whitney, and still, love hiking. I came back from that trip, and I was like, okay, I want to get.
I'm switching.
I was like, I need a lens that I can reach these animals, and that hooked me personally. At that same time, we started this one Instagram, our backpacking brothers, which was kind of just you know, back all of our hikes and exploring, and then we slowly transitioned that all into, okay, we're going more wildlife photography.
So were you guys already into photography at that point, just not wildlife?
Hayden, yeah, Hayden, you can speak more to your experience with photography and film. I came really late to the game. I mean, it wasn't until a couple of years ago that my brother finally encouraged me to pick up a camera. But I guess in hindsight, my personal journey had been sort of barreling towards wildlife photography. I didn't even realize it. I served in the Peace Corps in East Africa for
Oh,
2
wow.
years. I was in Tanzania, then I spent a little bit of time in Uganda after that, and that whole experience effectively recalibrated my personal, uh, and professional paths. I got sucked into the world of wildlife conservation, so much so that, when I got back to the States in 2018, I ended up pursuing a master's in environmental policy with an emphasis on wildlife conservation. But I'd never picked up an actual camera before. And my brother was the one that was consistently encouraging me to get into photography. And in my mind, I was like, I'm out there on the trail at all these parks with my brother. He's the one with the camera,
He'll get it.
I'll just enjoy the photos that he takes. I'll kind of gunsling with my iPhone and take some videos, and it never really crossed my mind until I moved back to the East Coast. I'd been living in California for a couple of years, and I was living in Southern Virginia, kind of right on the border of uh, North Carolina. And I was living in an area that was chock full of wildlife and biodiversity. Yeah, my brother came to visit, and he left behind one of his old DSLR cameras and a zoom lens, and I finally took it out into the field, and literally day one, I was hooked. And I looked at my images, and I was like, okay, I wanna do better than this. I need to learn the craft.
That's so cool.
I put the career path that I was traditional conservation career path that I was on hold while we focus on this.
Oh, I love that. So I actually I'm from Missouri originally, and I worked for the Missouri Department of Conservation for like 10 years, like
Oh, wow.
as kind of just doing odd and end jobs while I was in college. And I was always mad I didn't actually pursue a degree in that because I'm like, I have the experience.
Yeah.
All I needed was the degree, but I just love them from afar now. So, Hayden, you're on the West Coast and
Mhm.
Harrison, you're on the East Coast. Do you guys
Mhm.
still find time to meet up and adventure? How does that work?
Yeah, I try to drag my brother out to every single one I go on, but we try to do like I would say like our big trips. Like we normally do Yellowstone in May is one of them, and then we're both going to Alaska in June this year. And then I probably hit the Yellowstone Tetons a little more often than he does, but he's got this area we like to go to in North Carolina where they have the red wolves and black bears, and so he's down there quite a bit. And then I try to fly in there a few times as well. So, but I'd say like the big ones, like going to Alaska or something, we try to do. Yeah.
I have not been to Alaska yet. It is very high on my list. I'm like, is this the year? Because I'm also really
Yeah.
obsessed with the Northern Lights. So
Yeah.
I'm
Mm.
like, I need a winter trip. I need spring trip because I do love the wildlife as well. But I actually just got back from Yellowstone.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
very
Were you
nice.
there in
Over
October?
Thanksgiving.
Over
Just
Thanksgiving.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean it was closed, but
Yeah.
I was just hanging out in Island Park and
Yeah.
went to West Yellowstone a few
Cool.
times, but did run into a big old moose just on the side of
Nice.
the road, which I was like, oh, I was kind of surprised because I felt like it was kind of later in the season to see them out there. So that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but we have so many moose here. Like, but I love that. And I think that's kind of what got me hooked. I
Mhm.
had been chased by many moose on the trail and I was terrified of them for so long. And then I had some good experiences. I did a
Mhm.
backpacking trip. Have you
Mhm.
guys been to the Uintas at all here in Utah?
No,
No,
I'm
I
familiar
haven't.
with it, but I haven't been there.
They're so cool. So I spent a lot of time there in the summer and I did the solo backpacking trip and I don't know, there was so many moose, like 10, 15 moose there. I couldn't even count.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was on one side of the lake and they were on the other side of the lake. And just for the whole weekend, we just lived there in peace. And I was like, okay, they're not that bad. And they like would swim across the lake at night and come up over like where I was. And I think that was my turning point. I was like, okay, they're not always trying to kill me.
Right.
They can be chill. I noticed that on your Instagram, you guys do both video and photography. Do one of you do more than the other? Do you do an even amount? I just didn't know if one of you usually concentrated on photos and the other one did videos.
I would say we kind of just works out when we're in the field together. A lot of times we don't really discuss it, but it just happens that one of us will be photographing at a time another is taking video. And so it works out just kind of serendipitously where we both are able to piece together a moment for, say,
Yeah.
a vlog or, a short reel we're doing on social media or something like that. For the longest time, I wasn't taking any video. And then again, my brother was the one that was always pushing me and encouraging me to start taking video, learn the settings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tend to take more video. Of course, I'm over here with
Video.
my iPhone, guys. I do not have a camera. I got the new iPhone 17 with the 8 zoom,
Nice.
and I feel like I'm a photographer, but
I
I
mean,
always
that
forget to
zoom
take
is
photos.
pretty remarkable.
It's pretty good, but I think it's time for a camera.
I hear you.
It
Yeah.
looks
I
like
mean,
it
I
makes
think,
all the difference.
yeah, I think so. I mean, especially for wildlife specifically. Like, I feel like you can get some pretty awesome landscape shots with an iPhone.
Mm.
But, with wildlife, them being far away and further away and stuff. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, the photos, that's the photography side is the part that I love the most. Like I care personally the most about the photo, but when we're trying to, make short films and YouTube vlogs and stuff, you needed all the video. And then I'm also, I'm a SAG-AFTRA actor, and that led me to getting behind the camera and made a variety of web series and short films and
Oh, so
stuff.
cool.
So I had that experience when I came to the wildlife photography. So I think I'm always bothering my brother. Like, we need to get this B-roll. You get a shot of you. And, I get it. When we're out there, we just want to
Yeah.
go hike and look for animals.
I've started to understand,
Yeah.
what all is necessary for piecing together a story. When you're out there in the field, it's not just about capturing the images, but it's about telling the story of how you got there, what's happening, really giving the audience an inside look at how the sausage is made, both behind the lens and then,
Yeah.
what's going on in the field in front of you. So I've turned a
Yeah.
corner on that.
That's
Yeah,
true.
I mean, I think you guys do a great job, just what I've seen so far. I think that's my biggest struggle with content, which is why I decided to do a podcast, because I'm
Mhm.
so much better at just talking about it than trying to pull it together in a video. So I definitely understand. And I think that because I still am in the hiker mindset where I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm just out there to like, see nature and do this hike. For each of you, do you have a wow animal moment, like a wow wildlife moment, whether it was with the camera or without the camera, something that you still think about?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure we both have
Top
quite a
5?
few. I mean, so the story I was kind of saying earlier about that first grizzly bear we encountered, that was especially because I think that's my most like biggest wow moment because didn't know really much about the actual craft of wildlife photography at the time, but I mean, we came around the corner, it was right there on the trail.
Ooh.
And it just kept walking towards us, and we were slowly, we had a bear spray on us, and we were slowly backing up. And finally, my one buddy had a bear horn and was hitting the bear horn, and that finally stopped it. And again, it was a juvenile male, and they tend to be curious, so I think it was just curious of us. But then the bear horn finally made it stop, and it walked around us. But then we had passed a family on the trail who we were like, I don't think they would be
They're not
prepared for
ready.
this. Yeah, so we should go let them know. And so we turned around, and when we found them, so had the bear.
Oh no.
It had like kind of come back around. And, so we got this family, and we're all slowly walking back, and it followed us for a while. And we didn't realize at the time, but then when we finally stopped, the dad of the family, I believe he was diabetic or something like
Yeah.
that. And he had all this food, and it wasn't in a bear container. It was just like a full on like Subway sandwich. And we're like, well, no wonder that bear was following for so long. Like, but it was, cause it just kept coming towards us. So it was definitely, one of those like, whew.
Yeah.
especially the first time to ever see one. But yeah, that was pretty wild. That was my most, I think, wow.
Scary.
Well, and I'll say this too about that encounter. So Hayden and I, we like you said, we were with a group of our buddies. There were a handful of us, which made me feel a lot safer.
Yeah.
In hindsight, they say the critical number for deterring a bear that might be aggressive towards you is 3 people, and we had like 6 or 7 of us.
no.
But one of the things that stands out most to me in my memory from that encounter is Hayden and I were at the front of our pack hiking, and we were having a conversation. I don't know, for the life of me, I don't remember what we were talking about, but we were just deep in conversation, hiking on this trail. It was raining. We were in the middle of a forest, and by the time we looked up and noticed that this grizzly was on the trail in front of us, I mean, it was already very, very close.
Yeah.
It's
Dang.
one of those things where it made me realize just how well a large animal like that can really blend into its natural environment.
And they're
Because
so quiet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This guy was just kind of foraging on some grass and shrubs right by the trail, and I think there was a stream that was kind of flowing down the mountainside, and it took us both completely by surprise, and we just immediately froze right there
What
on
do
the
we
trail.
do?
Yeah.
You forget everything that you're supposed to do.
Right.
I ran into a grizzly and 2 cubs in Glacier. Luckily, because I usually hike alone, and I was alone on that trip, but I did Glacier. I don't know if they still do it, but like 10 years ago, they did a ranger-led hikes. So for people who were there alone, you could join a ranger on a hike. And so thank God I was with a ranger. I don't know what I would have done if I like ran into a grizzly and cubs on a trail. I'd probably just pass out. I don't know. But it was crazy because they were kind of up. I mean, they were pretty close, but they were kind of up on the ridge, and they were eating a mountain goat. So you have cubs, you have them eating. So you have like all the things that you should not approach them. And people were taking selfies. I was like,
Gosh.
I didn't even get a picture of it because I was like terrified. I was like, nope. So, but that's the only time I've ran into a bear at all. Like I haven't even, I feel like there's one time where I was hiking in the Uintas, and I think that I scared a bear because I saw something go running through like a black bear, and it wasn't a moose. It wasn't a deer. I'm like, it was probably a bear, but I haven't seen a lot of bears, and I'm okay with that. So Harrison, would that be kind of your wow moment too? Would be that the bear?
It's definitely up there. Yeah, top 5 encounter.
Did you have any cool encounters in Africa?
I had a lot. Yeah, yeah. And a lot of the encounters happened very unexpectedly. And one of the moments that always sticks out in my mind when I have these kinds of conversations, this was in 2017, I think. So it was while I was still living in Tanzania. And so where I lived was, it was in a remote mountainous village on the outskirts of a rainforest. It was beautiful. I mean, absolutely
sounds
stunning.
amazing.
It was in, yeah, it was in Kilimanjaro region. You could see Mount Kilimanjaro from the backside of my house, which was pretty cool. But down in the lowlands to the west, kind of between the mountains and the Kenyan border, was this small, relatively unknown national park called Nkomazi. And a couple buddies of mine, we were in a local town one weekend, and we decided we wanted to go visit the park. We'd seen it from above in the mountains, hiking and visiting different villages and towns, but we'd never actually gone down into the park. And so we rolled up there on the backs of motorcycles and had no idea like really what we were going to do. We were just like, well, we'll just talk to some of the staff and see if they can give us some recommendations, or if, if there's a particular set of regulations we got to follow. And we were talking to a couple of rangers at the gate, and they convinced us to go on a walking safari, which I don't think it's a very common thing to do in East Africa, maybe in other parts of the continent, but most people will do vehicle safaris. But this particular park, they allowed us to do that. So we went out with a ranger on foot, and we just started hiking through the park, and it was absolutely stunning. It was towards the end of the rainy season, so everything was still green and lush, and the mountains were kind of just all around us, and very imposing. And we're hiking out into the park. We're in a single file line behind this ranger, and we're going through some tall grass, and I'm like hyper aware, looking around on high alert, thinking to myself, why am I doing this? This was a horrible idea. He's got a rifle that looks like it's from like the early 1900s. I don't even know if it works if we were to have a hostile encounter. And so, anyways, we're in the park for about an hour, and all of a sudden we come to this big grassy knoll, and we start hiking up the knoll. And when we get to the top, my jaw just dropped. We looked out over the landscape, and there was a herd of about 40 to 50 giraffe just on a full scale gallop across the open green field with the mountains in the back. And I'd never seen a scene like that in my life. Never dreamed I would ever see a scene like that. It was just absolutely spectacular. Before they got too far out of distance, it occurred to me I might as well pull out my phone and take like a short video. So I got like 13 seconds of like half the herd galloping across the open fields. But it was just awe-inspiring. One of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen. And it made me feel like I was, I don't know, in the scene from Jurassic Park, I guess.
I don't even think I've seen anything like that on a video.
I didn't even know that giraffes would travel in herds that large.
Yeah, I guess I
I
didn't
thought
realize
it was
that
like
either.
max 10 to 20, but yeah,
That's so cool.
it was pretty wild.
So have you gone back now that you started doing wildlife photography?
I haven't. No, I actually
Soon.
I haven't been back to East Africa since I left Uganda in 2018.
Oh, wow.
I'm itching to get back. I still
I
have
bet.
a lot of friends over in that part of the world who I'd love to catch up with. And then, of course, now that Hayden and I are on our photography journey, it's on the list.
Do you guys mostly stick to shooting the US right now? Kind of like you said, like Yellowstone Tetons. Is that where you guys shoot the most?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, we kind of have our our main few spots, the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and then go up to Glacier some as well. But it's I would say mostly between there and then North Carolina where we go. I mean, personally, it's funny. My wife wants to go to Europe. I'm gonna go, but I really don't care. Like, I have no interest. Really, I just love that ecosystem. I love being out in the Wyoming, Montana, the American West. It's my favorite place.
So, fun fact, my husband is from Romania, and we went there for my first time this summer. It has the largest population of brown bears per square something. They were everywhere.
Wow, that's wild.
Brown bears and foxes. We saw so many foxes.
Really?
Cool.
So who knew? I sure didn't, but yeah, they're everywhere. I go to Yellowstone. I mean, I only live like 5 hours from Yellowstone, so I go to Yellowstone and Tetons a couple times a year too, because I mean, there's nothing like it.
Why not?
Yeah, I wish I could go to Glacier more. It's just a little bit further. I mean, it's like a 10-hour drive, but we did go this year, but we had like 48 hours. I was like, that is not enough time.
Yeah, I'll say I will never, ever, ever go back to Glacier though in the summer. Because we had gone in May and then I'd gone in October. And when I was there in October, I was the only person there basically. There was like nobody there. I had a handful of encounters all to myself, which was amazing. But my wife and I, we got married in Glacier this summer.
How cool. Congrats.
And thank you. Yeah. And we got married on Lake McDonald, that was great and all. But my buddy who was there, I was like, all right, let's get up early and we'll go get a hike in and maybe get some pictures. And it was an absolute nightmare. There was not a single parking spot available up at kind of by Logan's Pass and stuff. Like, it was. We literally spent the entire morning in traffic driving in, and we got there at we were up there at like before sunrise, and it was already completely slammed because I think everybody was trying to get in before that pass system timed entry thing. So I was like, we left, and I was so mad. We just wasted our whole morning.
Same thing happened to us. We went like end of July this year. And we didn't even hike hardly because we could never find a parking spot. So won't do that again. It was so pretty though, because
it is.
The day that we were there, it was like kind of rainy. And so the clouds were doing that thing where they were over the mountains and the waterfalls were coming down, which seemed kind of late in the season for that, but it was a great weekend. I didn't get to hike, so that wasn't fun. But my husband is also terrified of bears, squirrels, I don't know, any kind of animal. So he was very happy that it didn't work out. But do you guys have a favorite animal that you like to shoot?
Yeah, for me, it's black bear cubs. I mean, hands down. Yeah, it's I'll say black bear cubs over grizzly cubs. They've always just reminded me of a cross between a puppy and a baby chimp. Just the way their behaviors, the way that they play, their curiosity, and then of course the fact that black bears are, as a forest obligate species, they're always in and out of the trees, climbing on logs, branches. I mean, in black bear cubs they're always testing their limits, like swinging from branches. Yeah, they're my absolute favorite to photograph and watch and observe in general.
Yeah. How about you, Hayden?
Well, I think for me, I think there's nothing like photographing a wolf when it's like, not crazy far away, when you can actually, see it and get a good photograph. But the funny thing is it's rare. Like it's so, I mean, the amount of times we go to Yellowstone and see wolves, but see them very far. Just recently, this past fall, I had this incredible encounter with this wolf where I got to see it pretty close and get some good shots. Just looking into a wolf's eyes to me is like just the craziest. Like I've never looked in the eyes of another animal and seen, I don't know, what you see when you look into the eyes of a wolf. So I would say wolf, but because they're so far and few between to get those moments, I mean, I would then say grizzly bears. There's nothing like, especially in Yellowstone, once you get to know the, kind of the females where they tend to hang out, because, they'll stay in their same territories and they'll bring their cubs down closer to the road because the males are afraid. So the males won't come towards the road. So the females learn that and they'll bring their cubs there. And then it's pretty regular. Like, it's a lot easier to find them than it is to go find a wolf, without a scope in Yellowstone. So
that's one of my questions too, is just how do you know where the animals are going to be? Because that's always my struggle. Like every time I run into an animal, it's just chance encounter.
I think it depends on the parks or the places you're at, right? Like with Yellowstone, like I was saying, there's like 5 or 6 different female bears that they hang out in the same areas. And originally how we figured that out was because some of the parts of the park you would never, at least when we first went, we didn't even think to go, because everyone's like, oh, go to Lamar Valley.
Yeah.
And it's like Lamar Valley is beautiful, but if you want to see a grizzly, at a decent distance, it can happen. It happened in Lamar Forest once, actually, but it's not your best place to go. But I went and watched a bunch of YouTube videos of different photographers, and I would take screenshots of where these bears were. And I started to piece together the different parts of the park because I got to know the park. And so then I would do that. And so I think that is a big part of that, at least with the bears. And then once you start going, you start figuring out where they are. You meet more photographers who also give you tips of where to go and stuff. And then, we'll go in May for almost a month. And then I'll go back in October for like 3 weeks. And so you really get to know the park and where the different animals are. You go to the Tetons, you have a really good opportunity for moose there. And then like when we go to North Carolina, my brother was spending so much time down there that he got to know, okay, this is where the Milltail pack of wolves hangs out. This is where
I didn't even know there were wolves in North Carolina. That is news to me.
I'll let him tell you that because that's his specialty. Yeah, there's only about 25 left.
Oh.
And I think the last thing I'll say before Pops can jump in, but is the more time you spend with specific animals, you start figuring out their behavior. So not only then do you know like the areas they tend to hang out in, but then you kind of have an idea to, start predicting where they're going to go and time of the day. Like when we're in North Carolina, we know these bears are going back into the interior of the park at certain times. And so we put ourselves in a position to get that photograph of them crossing these little waterways to go back into the interior.
So smart. So much research, it sounds like.
Just a lot. I think just a lot of time in the field.
Yeah, and a lot of trial and error too. I mean, look, we've definitely been out there in the field before and just gotten absolutely skunked. And
all the time
it happens. There's definitely a lot of chance and fortune involved when it comes to not just wildlife encounters, but photographable encounters. That's
Yeah.
the big difference. Is like there's some places you can go and you can drive around or you can hike around, and on nearly every corner you'll spot something, which is rewarding in and of itself. But if your goal is to come away with a good photograph, those opportunities are a lot more difficult to try and plan for. But something Hayden touched on earlier too, when it comes to finding the wildlife, becoming integrated into the local community of photographers, I have found, and I think Hayden would agree, is one of the keys to facilitating those wildlife encounters the best that you can. Because a lot of times if you're out there with friends who are also they're also students of the game, know the lay of the land, you're in constant communication, as long as you have service, which isn't always the case, but it's extremely helpful. And then you learn from each other, like my friends will tell me about the encounters they had, where they occurred, what time of day, and likewise I'll share that information with them. And we trust one another. We're not going to, post specific pins and locations on social media. And it's definitely an important part, I think, to successful photography out there.
Yeah, the photographer that I had on last week too, he was really saying like the community of photographers, like even for landscape photography, just having people to bounce ideas off of and locations. Like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Have you guys had any like dangerous encounters while shooting, or was that first time Grizzly kind of like the biggest surprise?
Yeah, I don't.
Because I guess you're usually chasing the animals at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we haven't had any. Honestly, the only time we've had any like encounters that the hairs are kind of sticking up are I feel like when we're just hiking.
Yeah. When you don't know what's out there.
Right. Like that, and like we were just hiking out, even, trying to get a photograph. We're just out there hiking. Yeah, I don't know, Bubs, do you have anything you remember?
I don't think, not while we've been engaged in photography.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one incident in North Carolina not too long ago where we were talking with a friend of mine, and she was telling us, we were outside of our vehicles. We're driving around in this refuge, and we got us out of our vehicles. I met up with one of my friends, and we're on the side of this dirt road, and to the left of us is just a dense thicket of bushes, and then there's like bottomland forest behind it. And she was telling us how just the other day she was pointing up to a particular tree. She had seen a couple of young bear cubs that were treed there by their mother, and she had gotten some cool photographs of them. And as we're standing there next to, again, this wall of vegetation, you can't see into the forest, we're outside of our vehicles talking for like at least 5 to 7 minutes. And then as she's pointing up at this tree, all of a sudden the bush right next to us, like no more than a foot, violently shakes. And we just hear this woofing sound. And the three of us look at each other. It felt like my soul left my body. And we just very swiftly retreated back and created space. And the next thing you know, this mother black bear pops her head out from behind the bush and just looks around. And then we kept stepping further back, and she brought her cubs out to cross the road and go into the opposite field.
Oh my gosh.
But that was, I would say that's probably the only incident like that we've experienced while photographing wildlife. And even then, with black bears, an incident like that is going to get your blood flowing and your heart pumping. But an attack by a black bear, even a black bear sow, is extremely rare. More often than not, it's just a show of force. If the bear feels uncomfortable or agitated, they want you to back away. They'll bluff charge, they'll woof, they'll stomp the ground, clack their jaw, things like that. But very rarely is actually a prelude to an actual attack.
Here's what I've decided, and it's that whenever you hear about a bear attack, it was like a runner or a biker. So I just hike really slow, and that is my tactic to not get attacked, is that I'm not fast, so they have nothing to be scared of. My biggest fear on the trail as a solo hiker is mountain lion. Have you guys photographed mountain lions at all?
Not yet.
No?
I'd love to.
They're
but
so elusive.
Yeah, they're probably like the toughest, unless you go to like Patagonia or something. But like in the lower 48, they're probably known as like the toughest to find and photograph.
You got to come to Utah because they're all over the foothills here.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
We did have, though, again, that's like the one other time that I felt paranoid was we're in California and we have
Yeah.
a bunch of mountain lions there. We're hiking this whole time and I kept saying, I was like, I feel like something's watching us. And then we found this area that like biologists had clearly set up cameras and traps to photograph mountain lions. And we're like, oh, maybe that was a mountain lion following us. So, but I have bobcats. I have photographed bobcats, which I love. But yeah, mountain lion is on top of the list.
On the list, yeah. No, they're so. I mean, I haven't seen one, but you know, people do see them here. I actually feel safer. This probably sounds crazy. I feel safer hiking alone, like deep in the mountains, more than I do like in the foothills here, because I feel like they tend to hang out a little bit more in the foothills, especially like during the winter. So I'm like,
Oh, really? Interesting.
yeah, because they follow the deer down, so they're a little bit lower. And sometimes in like the spring, you'll like get them out in the valley. I'm like, no, go back. I don't want to see you. We talked about your favorite animals. Do you have a favorite shot that you've taken? And maybe just tell me like what animal, where it was, like why you love it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, my favorite. The funny thing is, I feel like, we're constantly trying to improve as photographers. And so like after I'll get a shot and I'm like, oh, this is this is such a good shot. And then I'm like, oh no, I could have done this. So I'm personally constantly like, I don't think I've gotten my favorite shot yet, but there's always something I feel like, but one of my favorites that I've taken, it was also partially because of the moment. There's a grizzly bear sow in Yellowstone that's known as Beryl. And she was the first grizzly bear that I photographed in Yellowstone. And then this past spring, I was hanging out with some other photographers photographing this other bear named Snow. And she kind of popped over this hill. And I knew like, oh, I could probably wait and she'll come back out. But I was staying in Gardner and this is on the other side of the park. So I was like, it's going to take me an hour to get back. Oh, I was like, you know what? I don't want to drive all night in the dark. So I'm going to start heading back. And I did. And sure enough, I got service like 25 minutes down the road. And my buddy's like, she's back out. And I was like, I'm not going to turn around. And so I kept going. And then sure enough, I found Beryl and I got out and there were some other people there. And then actually some people who were kind of stupid and she wanted to cross and they were not giving her room to cross. And so she went back out with her cubs. But I had an idea. I think I had an idea like where I thought she was going to go next. And so everyone left and she kind of disappeared. And I went down the road and waited by myself where I thought she was going to pop out. And then she did just that. And so like maybe one or two other people showed up and then she was hanging out there. So it was awesome to have that all to myself. And then again, I saw this moment where, okay, like this is the one thing I think my brother and I both have learned, like when a bear, a grizzly or a black bear wants to cross a road, they're eventually going to do it, whether, they get scared because of people or the ranger pushes them back up sometimes. Like they'll come back out and cross. And I knew she wanted to cross that road. And this time there's this big stream. She'd have to cross first. And I was like, that's the shot that I want. I want, like, if I can get her in that stream, it'll be such a neat shot. So sure enough, she came down with her cubs. And I was like, in position to get the shot. So that's one of my favorite photos I've taken. She crossed. And again, part of it too is just that like, it was not a bear jam. There was not a ton of people there. There's like, it was funny because there's like a couple other people there, but like, they were like just chit chatting. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go get this moment.
You keep talking. I'm going over here.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's one of my favorite shots I've taken for sure.
And he just printed it out for himself too.
I did.
That is my favorite photo that you've ever taken.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
It's up there for me.
Unfortunately, I left Yellowstone, a day or two prior to that?
Yeah.
Too early. Do you have a favorite shot, Harrison?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. Honestly, I think my favorite shot it's not even my best shot, but just the moment that it symbolizes for me is one of my all-time favorite wildlife encounters. It was in eastern North Carolina last winter. which is where I do the bulk of my photography. I mean, I get out west as much as I can, but being on the East Coast, and especially when I used to live down in the Southeast, I do a lot of wildlife photography in Eastern North Carolina. And that happens to be within this 5-county area that is home to the only remaining wild red wolves. So there's only between 28 to 31 left in the wild.
Wow.
There might be more this year. Hopefully there are. But yeah, they're critically endangered. They're native to the American Southeast, but they were extirpated in most southeastern states in the 20th century. And so in 1987, there was a range reduction program that put red wolves back out onto the landscape in this region of eastern North Carolina. And they've been kind of struggling ever since. But I've spent a lot of time over the last few years just out in the field observing the remaining packs and individuals who are out there from afar. And every now and then I'd have a relatively close encounter. You know, a lot of times I wouldn't even be using my camera. I'd just be watching them with binoculars and, you know, appreciating them being wolves in their natural environment. And there's one wolf in particular. She's now she's a three-year-old female, and she is for the first time a mother of her own pack. And my brother and I actually got to see her with her pups and her mate the last time we were down there.
So cool.
But prior to that, I'd seen her a handful of times, and she's always very curious. She's kind of served as an ambassador for her species and for that local population out on the landscape there. And anyways, this one time I was in the field last winter. I was driving around in the area that I know she likes to hunt in early in the morning. And I'd seen her a couple times at a distance, but every time I would see her, she'd be a little bit closer to where I was. And finally, I come around a bend, and there she is. Just, I mean, very, very close, closer than I'd ever seen a red wolf before. And she's up on this berm on a path across a canal from me, and she's just standing there perfectly still, looking at me. I've got this beautiful backdrop, and I go to raise my camera, and it's just gotten this camera. It was a brand new Canon R5 Mark II, and I had a zoom lens at the time, and I'm not even going to get out of my vehicle. I don't want it to run off.
Yeah.
So my window's down and my heart is racing, and she turns and looks at me, and I go to raise my camera. I focus on her eye, and then I go to click the shutter. Everything goes black. The camera just completely freezes on me.
Oh,
the
no.
screen goes black. I'm freaking out in my mind. And she's still just standing there staring at me, and there's nothing I can do. And so then she finally gives me one last look, and then she trots off into the forest. And I turn the car around, and I'm just like melting on the inside. Can't get my camera to work. It won't do anything. And so I take the battery out, put it back in. Finally, the system reboots. To this day, I don't know what went wrong with it. And I call my brother, because I need to vent. And so, and I probably woke him up because he was on the West Coast, and this was early in the morning on the East Coast. And I'm just going off. I'm like, I missed my opportunity. I'm never going to have that chance again. And it's all because my camera, I had a technical malfunction. There was nothing I could have done about it, but this was going to be the perfect photo. And sure enough, as I'm on the phone with him, and I double back at this point where I'm talking, and I slam on my brakes. I'm like, wait a minute, there she is. And it just so happened that she went off into the forest, but then came even closer to the road, and she had popped out at the edge of the forest and was just sitting there like a dog, just
She just
staring
wanted to
at
give
me,
you your moment.
just watching. Yeah. It was like she was willing to gift me that moment that I wasn't able to have as a photograph. And she was just sitting there, and I immediately hung up on my brother, got out of my car, went belly down on the dirt road, and just fired off a bunch of photos. And yeah, again, it's not my best photo. Compositionally, there's a lot that I wasn't able to achieve just by virtue of where I was and the perspective I had, but she was staring right at me. It was a beautiful moment, and it was a moment I thought I had completely lost because the camera malfunction. So
Yeah.
that would be it for me.
Well, that's kind of why I started the podcast, because I mean, there's so many people who hang out outside, and we have so many just cool stories.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love most about wildlife photography is oftentimes you find yourself having a lot of time in between moments where you're out there in the field alongside other photographers. And sometimes it's on the trail, sometimes it's waiting at a bear jam on the side of the road in Yellowstone. But there's always interesting people to talk to, and you get to hear all these incredible stories. I mean, some of these photographers that we meet they've been all over the place. They're like in their 60s and 70s, and they just have a wealth of experience, a wealth of exciting stories. It's not even so much something that helps you pass the time. It really enriches the whole experience being out there in between the encounters and the photography moments.
Yeah, and even with hiking, because I do solo hike most of the time, I always end up meeting people on the trail. And it's the same thing. Like you can hike 10 miles with a stranger and just, hear some of the coolest stories. So that's why I love the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brings everyone together. One of my favorite parts of the podcast is this "we listen and we don't judge" section. Only because I've done some really stupid stuff outside. Just, as you're learning, you make mistakes. And so I just like hearing other people's stories. So I'm just curious if you guys have any silly things you've done, maybe camera fails or or just anything that's happened in the outdoors that's kind of funny.
I've had a camera fail. Well, I mean, I think the worst camera fail is what happened to my brother. Especially because then he showed me exactly where that happened when we were there like a month ago, and where it was. Like, I didn't truly appreciate how awful that was until I saw where that wolf was. It would have been, the composition was perfect, so that I was like, yeah, that would kill me. I had one camera fail, which was like, it wasn't really the camera, but there's this area in Northern California, Point Reyes, where I go to photograph bobcats. And I was out hiking on this trail, actually, because they have tule elk there, and I was out going for the elk. And I had my 500 millimeter prime lens. It's not to get too technical, but it's an EF lens, and my camera is an RF camera. Basically, the EF is just an older mount, and so it works fine with the RF. But you have to put this little like piece in between that
Like
locks it
adapter or
all together.
something.
Adapter. That's exactly what it's called. And I had it around my neck, kind of, and somehow when I was hiking, because I would like put part of it on the hip thing around my backpack at the time. Somehow, as I was hiking, got the adapter button got bumped, and the camera and the lens came apart, and it happened, and I went to like catch it, and the camera went in, and it was muddy, like went into the
Oh
mud,
no.
and then because I went for the camera, I let go of the lens, and I thought I was screwed. The adapter got really muddy, and I had another adapter, so it was fine. But I had about a heart attack because the camera gear was not cheap.
I was gonna say
And
that's a lot of money.
yeah, that was my biggest. I was not happy. Just thinking about it now, it's just like,
Like, ugh.
yeah.
Whenever one of us has one of those kinds of mishaps in the field, I feel like our first instinct is to call the other as soon as we have service.
Yeah.
It's nice that you guys have each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like you guys get along pretty well. I feel like my sister, we're 3 years apart, but we do not get along that well. She's probably gonna listen to this and be like, "Yep."
My brother used to beat the crap out of me for first like 15 years of my life, and then all of a sudden woke up one day and we were best friends. So
That's so cool. Is it just the two of you, or do you have other siblings?
Yeah, just the two of us.
Just the two of us. I mean, it's just nice to have someone like who, like, you guys share the same passion. Because, I mean, yeah. Does your wife, does she enjoy like hiking or photography, or does she?
Yeah, so she definitely likes the outdoors and hiking and stuff. When it comes to photography, though, not so much. We learned our lesson. We were in Lassen Volcanic National Park, and I was specifically going to, right? Yeah, I love that park as well. And I was going there this time to photograph black bears there, and I found a black bear. And, I was probably sitting there photographing this bear for like 3 hours, and she was like, okay, like, it was really cool to see that bear. But after the first 10 minutes, I was ready to keep hiking. So when you do your photography trips, those are different than when we go hike. So they're officially separated. But yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah. My husband's the same way. Well, he's just not a big hiker anyway. Okay. He's more of an indoorsy guy, but I get him out there every once in a while. But yeah, like, especially if we saw like a porcupine once hiking, which those are so, if you
Mm.
have you guys run into
Yeah.
porcupines? They're so cute.
I've
Yeah,
seen
they're
one, but
awesome.
yeah.
They're so cute. And so I was like taking so many pictures, and it was really close. Like it was very curious. So I was like, and my husband's like, okay, I think you got it. I was like, no, but the angle, he's moving. I have to wait till
Right.
he's gone before I can give up taking pictures.
See, you really are already
I'm
like that
already
is
there.
exactly that. Yeah, that is exactly when you're doing wildlife photography, that is the mindset right there. So you just get a camera because yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. And we have the porcupines hang out at the ski resorts a lot in the winter.
Mhm.
And so I got this really cool shot last year. It was like snowing and the porcupine,
Nice.
I was snowshoeing and the porcupine was just
Awesome.
kind of snowshoeing with me. I don't know. I was like, okay, just you stay there, I'll stay here. And it was
Yeah.
really cool.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool
sounds
moment. And
like
I was like, oh gosh, I wish I had a camera. I wish I had a real every single time I run into an animal and I'll like show my husband pictures, I'm like, these would look a lot better if I had a real camera. Well, speaking of cameras, for someone like me who knows nothing about wildlife photography other than I love animals, what advice would you have on like gear, getting out there? Just do you have any advice to beginners?
I think there's to me the biggest things are, I mean, number one, like just getting out there. The more time in the field and learning animal behavior, the better you'll be able to predict where an animal might. And obviously, just when you think you can predict where they're going to go,
Sure.
they don't ever do that. But it does really help because then you can put yourself in a position where the animal comes to you and where you can get the kind of composition you want. But that's the biggest technical tip, I think, is getting low. To each their own, but I see a lot of people that put their cameras on their tripods and shoot down. And sometimes you don't really have an option
Mhm.
given where the animal is. But if you can get low, get at eye level or even lower than that, it really changes the whole
Okay.
the background, and you can blur out the foreground. It just opens up a lot for the composition and gives the animal that kind of that power in the frame and allows you then it looks like you're really making that eye contact. So I think getting low is the biggest thing technically, and then getting to understand how exposure works, shutter speed, aperture, ISO, all that, which can be a bit of a learning curve. But the thing is, honestly, like I think personally, if you like understand composition and how to fill the frame, I mean, you can shoot, you can learn the technical stuff over
Sure.
time. You can still shoot on priority modes or even in automatic and get a incredible shot if you're shooting at, with the right light and you have a good composition. So
I think Hayden hit on most of the points that were at the front of my mind. Like he was saying, know your subject. Take the time to study and do research on a particular animal if that's what you're going out to find, whether it's a bear or a wolf. Because then you'll know, one, it's good to educate yourself. It's good to know about these animals, and it's good to be able to talk about them to other people who want to learn about them as well. And two, it'll help you understand their behaviors better, and you'll be able to know if this animal is acting in this particular way, it's agitated or it's comfortable. Small things like the position of a bear's ears can indicate quite a bit as far as its comfortability around you or a group of people. And it's going to help you when you know what you're looking for or you're anticipating what an animal might do. Then okay, if I'm patient and I wait another 3 to 5 minutes, it might actually stand up and scratch that tree, or it might cross that stream or that road or something like that. But yeah, study your subjects. The other thing I'd say, and this is what really plagued me when I first got into photography, was thinking that I could create the image that I wanted in post-production. It was like, as long as I, in cameras these days, they have a lot of, they've got a lot of really fancy tech. You have animal auto eye focus and things like that. In my mind, when I first started, I was like, okay, as long as I lock on to the face of the eye of the animal, it doesn't matter where I am. Like Hayden was saying, I'd be standing and shooting down at the animal. I wasn't paying any attention to where the animal was in the frame, what the background, the foreground, anything else was. I was just like, okay, is it am I holding the camera still? And have I locked on focus where I want it to be focused? And then I would think to myself, yeah. And then once I get back home, I pull the images up, the raw files on my computer. I can edit them. I can crop and change the composition. But the reality is you really can't. It might work for social media because you're working with such a small screen, and you can crop in and create different types of compositions that will work well on social media. But when you're looking at the image on your computer, or if you decide to print it, you're not afforded that luxury. And so over time, I started to learn that making the effort and just having it sort of at the forefront of my mind before I even go into the field, to think, okay, if I anticipate that I'm going to have an encounter in this particular environment or this type of landscape, here's what I know is going to be on offer as far as composition, perspective, lighting is concerned. And I'm going to keep those things in mind while I'm observing and photographing the animal, so that the full frame image is going to look as best as I can make it look before I even get to post-production, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Because I kind of feel like I'm even that way now, like with my phone. I'm like, I'll fix it later.
Right,
So
right.
I would probably be the same way. So thank you for that.
One other thing I'd throw in there too is, you think it's an obvious thing, right? But like the lighting is just, it's probably the most important thing. Like if it's overcast, then you can a lot of times shoot all day. But if it's like midday harsh light, it's just not even, it's like put down the camera and just enjoy it with your eyes,
Yeah.
or go hike, because it's not worth, it's not going to produce a good. And
Yeah.
I've been out there ripping shots in harsh light when I started, and I'm like, yeah, you get heat haze, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
We love a good overcast afternoon, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am an overcast girly. I love overcast skies. And everyone's like, why?
Nice.
I'm like, well, if I'm going to spend my whole day hiking 15 miles, I want a good picture. And I'm not going to get a good picture if the sun is like right on me.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I know about the lighting.
So you're such a big step ahead of the game already.
I'm so close, guys. I just need the camera. Watch out, 2026. Here I come. Well, just to wrap up, I just wanted to see if you guys had any upcoming projects that you're working on that you wanted to talk about, or maybe where people can find you on social media, YouTube.
Yeah, we got a handful of things coming down the pipe. Right now, we're actually in the process of getting our print gallery up on our website. So pretty soon here, we'll start having some images up for sale. Working on a variety of vlogs and short features at the moment too.
Yeah. So our YouTube, it's Backpacking Bros Wildlife, and we have a handful of vlogs up there now and a short film. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 vlogs I got to edit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we got a
So
lot
we got
going.
4 to come out, and then a lot more to come. But yeah, so we have that coming down, and social media wise, yeah, YouTube, it's Backpacking Bros Wildlife. We do have a joint Instagram account, Backpacking Bros Wildlife, but then we have our own accounts where I feel like, I don't know, we're it's just too much to post to our own accounts, and then that one,
Yeah.
like the
I get
YouTube
it,
and the
guys.
website,
Yeah.
is like going to be one thing. So mine is Wildlife by Hayden on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and then Bups, you can
Yeah,
say
mine's
yours.
just my name, Harrison Livesay, for Instagram, and then on Facebook and TikTok, I'm Wildlife by Harrison.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you guys so much. I learned so much. I loved hearing your stories, and I just appreciate you guys coming on. And I can't wait to see what you guys do in the future.
Yeah, thanks so
thank
much
you
for having us. It's a great
so
time.
much.
Hayden and Harrison, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your stories about your love for wildlife and the outdoors with all of us. And friends, be sure to come back next Tuesday for another amazing episode full of outdoorsy stories. In the meantime, if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you have any questions for me or for Hayden and Harrison, drop them in the comments or reviews. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, one last reminder, whatever adventures you head out on, please remember to leave no trace. Protect these places so they'll be just as magical for the next person. Until next week, bye.